Hey, 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 gang. Welcome to our abode, our little house on the prairie in Chicago. We've got a cold night out there. We've got a little bit of snow going, a couple inches, maybe tomorrow some more. Perfect night for a fire. So grab some coffee, snuggle in, and let's talk about this. We got a fantastic response from the post just a few days ago, last week, and the post was about actually a question to get answers this time instead of a Q&A, and I was just blown away with the response that we got. What a smart crowd we have, what depth, and it's just across the board, just amazing stuff. And I think, well, right now, and this is, again, I'm posting this later, but as of now, we have over 240 comments, and I read each and every one. So intriguing, but we're not going to be able to get to all of them, but a lot of them overlap, which is really cool, so that's great. But again, amazing thoughts. We're going to cover, I think I've kind of picked out starting with the early birds, 20, the first 20 from the bottom up, I just took those verbatim, and the early bird gets the worm. And then we got another 40 of just kind of across the board, and a lot of the most popular, and then also just a mix in there of stuff that I picked out that I was particularly intrigued with. Some stuff I've never even thought of or heard before, so this is going to be really fun. So what do you say we go on our little adventure here? Let's go explore down this rabbit hole. You ready? So the question that I put out to you again was, and by the way, if you haven't seen the post, I'll put the link in the description box. You can go back and check that out. But the question that I put out to everybody was, what do you think happens to us at the moment after death? And where do we go? Is it heaven, or is it somewhere within the multidimensional world, or blank, basically something else? So let's start in. So again, with the first comments, the first comment in was from Kimberly. Kind of funny. She's one of our moderators, and I'm just going to read off what she said, and we'll go down the line here. So Kimberly said, "Love that photo." Thank you. It was a fun photo. "I believe at the moment after our last breath, the soul leaves the body. Whether it goes up or lingers in a holding place depends on our earthly behavior. I've experienced an NDE. Now, an NDE, as most of you know, is a near-death experience, or could be OBE, kind of crosses over into out-of-body experience." And Kimberly said, "So I 100% believe in heaven." So my question is, if you had an NDE, I'm asking the questions right back at you. But let's just talk about this. Very, very cool. Anyone that's had that type of experience, I have myself. Where did you go? What did you see? What made you say that experience says, or made you say, I believe in heaven? But very, very interesting. I should say I had one experience, and then I had an experience where I thought I would get it. Remember, many of you know that I was in that TBM Avenger World War II plane that I owned, where we had to bail out. The plane crashed, that whole thing that happened in Arizona over the White Mountains back in I think it was 2018, I can't even remember now, but I want to put it out of my mind. But there was a point in the middle of the night where I wasn't sure, in a lot of pain, freezing, like, am I going to survive? And I did not see anything special, and it probably means I wasn't near death, but I thought I was at the time, but I didn't. That was probably as close as I got, but I didn't experience anything. But again, I was probably had a ways to go before that experience might come. But I had an experience in high school where we'll talk about a little later on, where it just came out of nowhere. And it doesn't mean you don't need to be, I guess, in a near-death experience to have a near-death out-of-body experience. So we'll talk more about that, but very interesting question. The next one was from Debbie Butler. And Debbie Butler said, I love the picture. She also said that. And Debbie just basically said, I believe we go to heaven. And in the comments, I think the only reply was just basically didn't want to get involved in conversation. But I did ask Debbie, I said, well, you want to go to heaven? What do you picture as heaven? And I was thinking in my mind, so I was curious, what is heaven like? I mean, we have, have you ever seen Lovely Bones? That's a vision of heaven, running through the wheat fields and the children and reuniting, or is it surreal scenes of waters and shipwrecks and strange houses and going through portals? And Debbie came back and she said, I basically believe once we pass on, our souls leave the body. We then go to our Maker and reunite with our loved ones who have passed before us. So meet our Maker, that would be meeting God, right? Wow, what an amazing image. And I'm sure Debbie, like all of you and like I do, you just start to picture in your mind's eye, what is that? What does that look like? And of course, meeting relatives, I saw a lot of that. No surprise in this. That was really fun to see. Moving on, number 3, Sylvia Chao, C-H-A-O. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. And Sylvia had said, I'm not really sure. I had a near-death experience. I flatlined in the ambulance after an asthma attack, woke up in ICU. I really do believe our soul's like an energy, never dies. It transferred into another birth or becomes part of, who knows, the greater cosmos, heaven. I'd like to think there is peace after death. But then, why do some spirits walk the earth? I'm very sensitive to that and have encountered ghosts. They do not frighten me. It proves not all souls find peace. And I thought that was very interesting. And again, I saw other comments that overlapped similar, but it really brings me back to that energy that we all have. It has to go somewhere. And if you look at the pure physics of it, it's electromagnetic energy. I mean, that's what's in our brain. That's what makes our muscles move. Remember, I said like the frog experiment in 7th grade biology, and you see the muscle. It's electricity, so electromagnetic energy, and it cannot be destroyed like any energy. So this is like a big thing we're going to talk about is, where does that go? Is it go to heaven? Does it go to space? It's really intriguing, and of course nobody knows, but it's really intriguing to think about. So thanks, Sylvia. That was a really good question. The next one was number 4, My Lamberfides. And My Lamberfides said, I believe what God said to Job in the book of Job when Job asked about his children. So I am saying I believe what God says, and I hope my name is written in the book of life, and that Jesus will do a resurrection of the dead when he is given the keys to the grave, like it says so in Revelations. Now, the Bible, for me and many of us, very intriguing, especially Revelations for me. So many dimensions and interesting things. But, I was raised a Catholic and I have a view of heaven. And, again, it gets back to what's your view of heaven? Is it, as I read those words, I think about, Jesus. And does Jesus look like the pictures we see? Does he look different? Has he aged? God, all of those things. And I'm always curious, like, as you guys, if you want to respond to this video, this episode we're doing here, then, well, it's really a segment. Then, yeah, I'd love to know what's in your mind's eye. We have a picture here that was painted by, I think it was a young girl. Many of you might know this story. I forget her name. The picture's in the next room. I just thought of this, and that was what she saw of what Jesus looked like. And it looks similar, but it doesn't. But there were other factors that she had seen Jesus, and a lot of people believe that this is what Jesus looks like. I know some of you guys know, and feel free to put in comments I remember it was a girl, but the Bible, it's just very fascinating to me, all of that. Number 5, Wendy Zakowicz. Wendy says, as a nurse, I have seen the moment of death and the essence leave the body, although some are not as evident as others. Personally, I believe that we all go to our makers, whoever they are. I really believe that, and I'm sure a lot of you do too, that, and again, we talk about the energy can't be destroyed, but that energy in our body, if you really think about it, a lot of it is coming from our brain. Now I'm talking the physics again, and that energy is, when we die, it leaves. And again, as I've heard this from other nurses where they witnessed a lot of these events where people die suddenly in the hospital, or they die slowly, they take their last breath, and they and the relatives witness in different forms or another how the soul, the energy leaves the body. I've heard that over and over. My boss, before I started my companies, I'll never forget, we had a deep talk once, and he said, his name was Frank, and he said, he was with his mom holding her hand, and he said he witnessed the energy. He couldn't really describe it, but he saw with his eyes, not just like, I feel this. He saw her and she went up, okay, in the hospital room, like best he could describe, as I recall, almost like vapor or smoke. So, gosh, it's really just amazing to think about. And I've never had that experience, but it's just very, very intriguing. So the number 6, I Scream Warrior, EYE, Scream Warrior. I like to think we're given a choice to go to heaven or be reborn. Now, I've never thought about that before. Imagine you die and your energy, your soul, you're going to God, you're going to Jesus, or you go wherever you're going, or that I've heard we'll talk about this, the intermediate world, and there's a group of wise people, maybe it's purgatory, but somewhere where it's, you have to wonder, you go there and they say, what do you want to do? Do you want to, I'm sure it's not as simple as that, but do you want to do this or do you want to do that? Very interesting to think about. I've never thought about that before, but it's definitely in the realm of possibility, I think. Number 7, Andrea Gennaro. I believe our spirits leave our body and go straight to heaven, back home to the Lord. And in that, under replies, Jean Och said, I believe our souls leave our body and goes to wherever our heaven is when we die. So again, we're getting comments, we're getting replies, we're getting strings. And a lot of people here, it's interesting, are aligning in thought. So there's something to that. I ask, is there only a heaven? Is there a purgatory? Of course, is there a hell or the place for bad people? Those are kind of the 3 choices. Or are there other places that we go, the interstitial world? Interesting to ponder. Number 8, Lisa Malloy says, I believe we are reunited with our loved ones when they come to take us behind the veil. When we have a time of rest in the summer lands, where we review our most previous life and choose whether to reincarnate and learn our lessons we didn't learn the last time, or choose to stay in spirit. I believe we write our soul contract like a syllabus of what we want to learn in life before we reincarnate. I'm not Christian, so I don't believe in the concept of heaven or hell. So, very interesting. Now, for myself, you talk about reincarnation, and I get alerted because that's one of the things I'm most interested in. And, just generally speaking, as I talk here, I'm in the middle. And I guess I'm supposed to be, but truly am. I'm scientific and spiritual, and I'm open, and I'm searching. So this is really, reincarnation has always interested me, because that is, the energy leaves the vessel, the body, the dead body, dust to dust. But does the energy stay together, or does it dissipate and float out and just become of the overall energy of the planet? And I'd like to believe that the energy stays together, and maybe it's reborn into a baby, or maybe somebody in their early childhood. These are the crazy questions to ask, but the science, what's fascinating is the science really supports the spiritual ideals here. If we're talking about reincarnation, science really supports it, that energy. Number 9, Bethlehem Eisenhower. And it's not like Dwight Eisenhower, it's Eisenhower, H-O-U-R, writes, now I can't pronounce this is biblical terms, Excelsius, and I know you guys are all going to correct me, I butchered that, 12:7, then shalt the dust return to the earth as it was, and the spirit shall return unto God who gave it. It is God who calls us away, we go to him. And then Luke 23:43, and Jesus said unto him, I think it's verify, I said unto thee, or something, today shalt thou be with me in paradise. And then Pamela Ella, again, we were getting responses, alignments, said that Luke 23:43 is her favorite verse. She says it just says so much to her. The Bible verses basically, as I interpret it, say we will return to God, and God will be in paradise. And I interpret that to be heaven. So it's a reaffirmation, basically, the Bible, and reading those passages, that there is a heaven. And of course, at the end of the day, with all of this, I think we all hope that's kind of where it all goes, what it ends up. But sadly, or realistically, we're not all believers. We all respect, at least where I'm coming from, we respect all the religions. But I'm like in the middle on all that. I'm hoping, but I'm just not sure. But it's really cool that many people believe in their hearts 100%. And maybe that has something to do with it. You believe that hard, when you die, it happens. And those, the doubting Thomases, maybe like me, or the wanderers, maybe that's our downfall. Interesting to think about. I'm just kind of going with the flow here. This is unscripted, so let's go to number 10, M. Lapko. I think depending on what we've done in our life, some of us move on to join our loved ones, some don't. I definitely know some of us have a real hard time surrendering to the infinite. So we spend more time in this dimension trying to rectify our behavior while we are here. I believe there are helpers. This is the interesting part. I believe there are helpers who help those that are lost, both on this side of the veil and on the other. Eventually, we all return to the Creator, reborn, clean, fresh, anew in life. Of course, this is all conjecture because none of us really know, and that's really true. But I want to know, who are those helpers? I've heard this before in different ways. Again, getting back to that group of wise people, or like, who are they? They're not lost souls. Those are souls that are in the in-between, and maybe they're slated to be the helpers. And are they the helpers for so many years or decades or centuries or eons? I mean, time doesn't mean anything out there or up there, right? So, but the helpers, they have to be the wise people. Maybe they're the wise people that are here on earth, the wisest people. Maybe God or some power holds them back and says, hey, need you here. Can you maybe it's like Peter at the gates, not, go to hell or go to heaven, but it's more like, the counselors, we had in high school. What do you want to do? Pretty cool thought. Number 11, Rolf Sinkgraven says, and Rolf, as I recall, is the picture with the little doggy, says, after death, our soul moves on to learn more and to repair our wrongdoings. We live multiple lives to learn and experience cause and effect. We all have a book of life that has a fixed start and few things that have to happen, things we have to learn, and then we die and go on to the next life. If we kill in this life, we will give birth to that soul in the other life, cause and effect. Every wrongdoing, whatever it has to be paid. God does not punish us. We do that to ourselves or something we have to live through. God is love, nothing else. Wow, that is really an amazing thought, and I agree with that. The question I ask with all of that is, and the intriguing part that jumps out to me is destiny. And this is something to ponder. Is destiny something that is all pre-written? Then what's the point of living? Destiny, like to me, seems like there's some general, roads we're following, and then you can take those little turns. But boy, we know from cause and effect, one little turn rewrites a complete new future and history. So, you have to wonder, is destiny, and we're going to talk about time travel, time dilation, and that's real stuff. That's not science fiction. We just don't have the technology yet to really cause and affect some real changes there, to go back or go forward. But when you talk about destiny, it starts to say, if time travel is possible, then if you change things, there could be different pages written to history, maybe at the same time. And that's something we'll talk about in a little while, called dimensional time, or time dimensions, things happening at the same time in the same place. Very intriguing. Thanks, Rolf. Number 12, David Goodman. David says the majority of NDEs, near-death experiences, seem to have a common experience. Suddenly they appear floating above the body and they can see everything. There's no pain. Their senses become amazingly acute. They sometimes feel as they're being pulled through a tunnel of light. Some NDEs recall meeting someone that has passed before them, and they know this person has family or as family or a friend they may or may not known during their time here on earth. There is a sense of unconditional love they feel, and it's hard to explain. And he mentions some more things, but this brings me back, this NDE thing. I'm really curious to learn more from you guys, maybe in comments as we come back from this episode on your experiences. But I had one in high school where I think it was junior year. It was in the bedroom. I was in bed and I literally was lifted out of my body flat, and I could see myself in the bed. And the one thing that really stood out that made it real for me was because I was awake. It wasn't drowsy, it was just really freaky. But the big thing that stood out was that it wasn't arms that were lifting me. It wasn't a table. It wasn't weightlessness. It was being pulled up by my insides. I don't know how to explain that, but it's like my organs, my bones, every part of my body, I felt the pull against gravity. So I don't know what that means. I don't know if that means anything, but that's the one thing that I remember most. But the out-of-body experiences and the near-death experiences happens a lot, and they overlap too. 13, E. Succotash. I love that name. Whatever happens, it must be a force or a barrier of immense power to keep the dead from communicating with the living. The strong relationships we leave behind are severed in time. The love I feel for my children, for example, would make me want to stay in communication with them. What stops that? Why are most loved ones silent? This is true. I'm not including paranormal experiences, but most people do not hear from their loved ones after death. Why? What stops us? What stops us? The Bible has said that we sleep after death. But then what? So I would agree there has to be a barrier, right? What is that barrier? Because there are people that have, and I think that we'll talk about this too, gifted people that can reach or feel that can they are probably around us, but we're oblivious to it. We just don't have the gift. That's my belief. But what is that? Is that the barrier that we just, our senses, and people try to train for it, and maybe some can overcome and get there. But I believe that is the barrier, ourselves. That's my opinion. Would be interested to see what you guys all think. Again, we get to talking about multi-dimensions of time, and I think that plays into it too as a barrier. Now we hear number 14 from Irish Eyes. Irish Eyes is with Serenity Sue. Irish Eyes has his own channel now. Irish Eyes says, and we don't know his name, he's Mystery Man. Sue's backup. Sue's boyfriend? Come on, you guys got to come out and tell us what's going on here. Sue's boyfriend. All right. You can remain private. I'm not trying to dig too much. All right. Irish Eyes says, very good question. I always feel like when we are asleep and we dream, we are in a good place with family, friends, etc. But the dream will last forever. When we die, we will not wake up from it. Sorry, I've kind of butchered that up. But the essence of it is basically, it's the same as when we're dreaming, and all these, good dreams, hopefully, and maybe, we've all had bad dreams, hopefully it's a good dream, but that it's a dream that we never wake up, and I've never thought about that, and maybe that's what it is. As we're dying and our energy's leaving, to us it feels like we're in the dream. And again, it's like what I always go back to that movie, The Lovely Bones, as she's going through all of these portals and visions, that it's like a dream. And that may be it. It's really interesting. I never thought of that before. And maybe that is a perpetual dream that we have, and that kind of overlaps into the out-of-body experience, which is maybe that's when we die. We have obviously the ultimate out-of-body experience, right? Maybe when we have OBEs, we're just practicing for death. I don't know. Number 15, Edwina. I screwed that. I screwed that up. She corrected me. She said it's pronounced Edwina. Edwina Hartford. And as I recall, you're from Ireland, Edwina. And Edwina says, on the subject of death, it's not something I want to happen. If I could live forever, I think I would. Can't remember where I heard or read this, but when a person dies, they can still hear things for around 10 minutes after death. Also, another thing I wonder about is our loved ones being around us. When you often see a light or something in the corner of your eye, or see a person that is with you, are you, Edwina's saying, are you seeing, the spirit of that person? Very interesting. I think the notion of being in your body for 10 more minutes, I've talked about this. This is the thing that scares me, and it's the only thing holding me back from cremation. I've talked about it before. I'll probably do the natural burial because I don't want to be messed with the mausoleum stuff we've seen here with the ghouls and all the grave robbing. But I just want to become part of the earth. But that cremation, what I'm getting to is, if you do stay in your body for 10 minutes or 10 hours, and that was that night gallery I saw where that happened. They're doing the autopsy on the guy, and he's dead, but his soul is still in there, and he's feeling everything. I could not imagine being put in that oven, kind of like buried alive on steroids. So I don't know. There could be something to that. Nobody knows. Maybe some people's energy leaves right away, and maybe other people's soul lingers. And that kind of scares me a little bit, at least for myself, because no matter what, I'm going to be buried. I mean, it's just going to be all bad if I'm still in my body for like 10 minutes, maybe not 10 minutes, but lingering. Not a good thing. I hope that's not true. 16, Christine Zerp, or Zerp, Z-E-R-Y-P. I don't believe that when our bodies die that we are gone. We have a soul and it reunites with family members. I believe in the spiritual world. I think there's evidence of it myself. Like you said, we are made up of energy. So again, right, it's that energy. Where does it go? Does it stay intact or does it disperse? Hopefully it stays intact, but again, the natural thing to do would be we die and it just, it just goes. So don't know, we won't know until the magic day comes, and then we will solve the riddle. 17, Stephen Hobbes says, I believe in a spiritual realm of everlasting. Some in the flesh are gifted to hear voices from beyond the veil when portals are opened. I am one of those persons. Often ridiculed but proven, I believe heaven is futuristic, and spiritually we linger in a perfect place of waiting. After all, you and I are just spirits in the flesh, and that is true. I mean, that's really the bottom line, is our spirits are just in the vessel right now, and they're hanging out here by some magnetic or some gravitational, it's not gravitational magnetic, but you know what I mean. It's a synonym for the force that holds, that we want to be in our body, or we're held in the vessel. So very interesting, again, and I think some people hearing the voices are those that have the gift. Number 18, Serenity Sue with Irish Eyes. We heard from Irish Eyes. Now we've got Serenity checking in. 18th comment from the bottom, or 18th comment from when I posted, says, when we die, our soul leaves our body. Then I think we enter a light. We go to heaven if we are good. I also think that we can visit our loved ones when we choose. And I guess my answer to that would be that for a lot of people believe that, and we can only hope. We can only hope that, in my opinion, that's probably the best of all the alternatives. Thank you. 19, Pippadot. Pippadot is our moderator, Debbie. And Debbie says, I was raised Catholic and always told that the spirit leaves the body and returns home to the Lord. Of course, told a lot of other things too. I'd most like to believe that is what happens. I'd also like to believe that we get a choice to do whatever we learn or experience that we haven't. Scary thing is, this could be real bad things like being born in complete poverty, not enough food, not enough water. In my mind, it's also like born into a war. The thing that upsets me most is I asked when I was a child, several people, including the priest, if our animals are like her puppy or her cat, do they go to heaven? And she was says, I'm sickened to this day at the different answers I got. My father, who was the most religious man that I ever knew, devastated to tell me that they don't go to heaven because they don't have souls. I've been devastated since. What would heaven be without animals? I have so many questions, and I'm open to discussion. Yeah, gosh, I hope that, all dogs go to heaven, cats, all that. But then, where do you draw the line? Lions, tigers, and bears, all the wild animals, they can't. Do they all have souls? And maybe all animals do have souls in the same way or a different way, because when we go to heaven, right, or go to our dream place, the animals got to be there too to make up the framework of, I go back to, again, the visions that you see in a lot of the movies and what's in our mind's eye of heaven. I think it's similar to that. You see trees, you see grass, there's got to be animals. So hopefully there are animals. Now we're coming to the last ones here for the first part. Bottle Man Bob. As someone who believes in the saving knowledge of the gospel of Jesus Christ, my faith tells me those who put their trust in him are eternally with the Lord after we breathe our last. Well, I think that you and many people are blessed with that belief, and hopefully that's true. And I have to say that the people that believe in the Lord and believe in Jesus Christ, and I know many, believe it with just such ferocity. It amazes me. And I think that's a gift in itself. And boy, I've got a lot of respect and admiration for you. I wish I could be that way. I really do. It's just fantastic. My dad always said, and you say, my dad always said, if you're not sure, put your trust in God and, go to church, do all these things. Hey, where are you going? Come here. Come here. So it was more of a just in case, like an insurance policy. When you die, you did all that, you go to heaven. I don't know that it's all about that. I think it's got to just be genuine faith and belief, but I don't know, right? That's why we're talking about all this. Really neat stuff. I'm gonna close it out, this part, with Michelle Bartlett. I believe that when we die, we go to sleep, and when Jesus comes back to hopefully bring us that deserve it to heaven, we are awoken and taken home. But for others, they go to the other place that is not heaven, and she had 2 devil emojis. We know that means hell. So, yeah, I don't know. If you did a good life, you have nothing to worry about. And if you're in between, you got to worry, I guess. And I guess the big thing I always think about is, what's the border? What is it? Just murderers that go to hell? No, I'm sure cheaters and people that have screwed people over. But where's the line drawn? I know it's God's going to be the judge, but try to live. But that could be scary for people. A lot of people who live on the in-between, the gray line, and taking a chance. And then, the other question I have is, what does hell look like? Right away, caves of fire, Hades, suffering people. I really believe that, short of anything else, that hell is what you make it. It's like your worst nightmare is going to be hell, right? I think it should be hard labor. I don't know about fire and suffering on the skin, but mental suffering and it's like prison today, the country clubs. They should be doing hard labor. Anyway, so that is, and no parole. There's no parole in hell, I don't think. And that's the final thing I'll say on this part. Maybe you go to hell for so many decades, centuries, or eons, and then you're given parole, and you get to go to purgatory, and then you work your way up to heaven. I wonder about that. So many questions. Okay, so I'm going to shut it off for part 1, and then I'm not sure if I'm going to do this as one episode or not, but if I don't, we're going to pick it right back up with we'll call it the more popular and some of the questions that I picked out. All right, so we'll be right back very soon. Thanks for coming. All right, gang. I put some more wood in the fire. It was like going out. All right, this is the part 2, which might kind of run concurrently, but the question was asked at the very beginning, just to refresh. What do you think happens to us at the moment after death? Where do we go? Is it heaven? Or is it somewhere within the multidimensional world? Or is it somewhere else? So again, now we went through all the order of the first people that came in. Now we're going to go back kind of more random and some things that I picked out. And again, there's a lot of overlap. If I don't mention your name, it's just because it's just, we can't get 240 comments in, and it was similar to someone else. So number 1 is Nora Daniels, and we're starting right off. Listen to this. Nora says, I died February 15th, 1980. I remember everything from my death to being sent back by God. I never gave God much thought or time. I was young and stupid. I can tell you God is absolutely real. Jesus is absolutely real. Heaven are real. It changed me forever. I died in the hospital. If not for being there, I would not have been sent back to fulfill my life out. Wow, that is really interesting. So basically, Nora, it sounds like you were brought back from the dead. And that's a direct quote, a direct story, direct relation. I've never met anybody or talked to anybody that I've heard stories of, but never anybody that actually went through it. And obviously, as you did, you, from what I read here, is you saw God, you saw Jesus, you saw heaven. So my question to you, I would really love to hear back in comments, is what did they look like, and what, did Jesus have the beard? Did it look like the pictures? Did God look like a glowing white apparition? Did heaven look like the rolling fields with all the people and nirvana? I would love to hear back what you saw, but it sounds like you were there for a period of time and you came back. Very interesting. Sylvia Wright, number 2. Now this is a little bit of a long one. I'm going to try and cliff note this, but Sylvia Wright says that she is a medium. And she says, I've always disliked that name. I think I would call myself a listener. I have had the gift since I was 3 years old. She goes on to say, I was visited by my grandmother Wright's house. No, I visited my grandmother's Wright's house and was told when I came through the front door that if I would find the cake, I could have a piece. And she started laughing, and she said she went directly to the bedroom and looked under the bed. And there they were all shocked, and I found the cake, but I didn't get a piece of cake. But she said there was a voice telling me where to look. She says, I've known things that I shouldn't have. I have known when people were going to die. I've tried to warn people of their deaths, and it didn't work. And she goes on to relate, and you can look in comments, of some of the stories that she had. And I'm just amazed by this, and I do believe you. And I have met a couple of other people that have had similar experiences. By the way, that was really mean not to get that piece of cake. They never intended to let you have it in the first place. But anyway, that's a pretty cool story. It reminds me, and the connections that we have, that you see, the gifts that you don't know, the gifts that you have, and some people have it and they don't know it. It kind of reminds me of the episode of, where you can see things, or you can feel things and feel people, and you can feel what's going to happen to people. And that's some of the things that, it's too long, but you can go back and look where she's had those experiences where people are dying, and those, they're connections. And if you look at the Josiah Wilbarger story I did there in Austin, where he was scalped naked and dying, and he heard his sister talking to him, and then he found out later, because he survived, that was when she was talking to him, it was like the day or the night she died. And also the connection of there was a story I had with the Saipan soldier where the mother woke up in the middle of the night, they've killed my son. And sure enough, when you put the dates and times together, and that 3,000 miles away, it was like the exact moment the soldier killed her son, that the Japanese soldier, that she flew out of bed. So there are connections that I believe that we all have, some stronger than others. I should say not stronger, but some were people that are more attuned to feeling it. A lot of mothers feel this with their children, right? You've heard this. But I believe it's our energy that's emanating from our body. You've heard of auras. It's our energy field. Now the energy field, and people have taken pictures of auras, no big deal. It's not like something that's fiction. It's the energy it's like a thermal camera can pick up your heat. People can pick up your electromagnetic energy fields. And now physics of this is those fields do not stop. It's kind of like shining a flashlight or a laser beam in your backyard at night up in the outer space. That light just keeps going. You won't see it anymore, but it's traveling forever. And thus, I believe, and the physics are, your life source, your aura that's traveling out, that's being emitted, keeps going. And we don't know if that's a mile, 10 miles, 100 miles, or on the other side of the world or another planet, but it keeps going. And who knows at what speed that goes. Now, the speed of light is 186,000 miles per second. Radio waves travel at that speed. Maybe our energy fields are electric. So imagine traveling at that speed. It is in an instant, like the snap of the fire. Hey, good job. That was perfect. So think about it. This is what I believe, that those connections across the planet or across the neighborhood are real and instant because of our life energy. And that aura is also something that when you're crossing over, you meet somebody, you have that sixth sense of you don't like them, or you've liked them, or you've known them. All of those different gut reaction feelings is your aura. And I would say of everything and all the things we're going to talk about, the aura for me personally is the journey that I'm on now. I 30 years ago, I got into it and, got off track and other things in life, but it's something that I really want to explore. I will tell you, I had experience in California many years ago because I was like, hey, I got a day to kill, and I went to see somebody and they put my hand on I think I talked about this in a live stream and said, this is your aura, and it printed out all this pre-computer stuff on who I am. It was all BS. You don't get it from your palm. Anyway, that's my opinion. So I think it's really, you have to get a projected image of an aura to see in different colors. Just interesting stuff, but that's kind of how I relate to that. Number 3 from Alan John. I personally have had 3 NDEs, 2 as a child, 1 as an adult. The last one, I was in ICU 2 years ago. After I had an operation for cancer, I got a bad infection. I was rushed back to the operating theater. I remember being outside my body, looking down at myself and the nurse standing next to my bed and seeing my mother and sisters in spirit in a feeling of joy and pain free. And I made the decision and popped back in my body. I could write a lot more on this, but it would be personal other than our spirit goes on. And very interesting. I absolutely believe that. We've heard that story many times. The operating room, looking back at your body. And I guess what I find intriguing about what you say is that you had a choice. So did you, as you're looking down, you just thought about I want to go back? Or did you ask someone, hey, send me back? That's really interesting. What triggered you going back? What was the moment? And again, a lot of this stuff, if you guys want to comment back, it would be great to hear what your thoughts are. The choice. Number 4, Elizabeth Lewis says, I have had multiple visions and watched family and friends, souls, spirits enter into heaven. Very powerful, and I believe. Really cool. Number 5, Kathy Brown says, I believe what God's word says about where I will go. Before Jesus left and went to be with his Father, God, he told his disciples, he has prepared a place for us, but he also tells them that no one comes to the Father except through me. In other words, we need to accept him as our Savior. Jesus is the only means to our heavenly home. And a few things, Kathy continues on. So I really have to commend you on your unwavering faith. And I do believe, and I think you're right, that the place is prepared, that God has prepared heaven. And it's really, again, I go back to your unwavering faith. I really admire that, Kathy. So now another Kathy, number 6, Kathy Yearwood says, I do believe there is a heaven. I was with my mother when she passed away. She was reaching upward with her hands as if to be taking someone's hand when she shook to her last breath. 2 times I have felt the comfort of God. Both times I was deep in prayer for guidance and strength. Both times a feeling of calm and warmth came over me as if warm oil was being poured over me. Another time I was in a very traumatizing accident, and I heard God's voice telling me that he was in control. To look around at all the beauty in nature, the birth of a baby and the human body, it's more than a big bang. Yes, I do believe. Now, Kathy saw something. Kathy's mom. Kathy's mom was reaching upwards with her hands, right? It said at the beginning, Kathy said, with her hands as if to be taking someone's hand when she took her last breath. I find that very, very interesting. Were those relatives? Were those angels? Was it God? Was it Jesus? Was it God? I mean, these are really profound questions. You wonder what you have to believe. She was reaching out to somebody. Number 7, Wendy Zakowicz. I think it's Zakowicz. As a nurse, I've seen the moment of death and the essence leave the body, although some are not as evident as others. Personally, I believe that we all go to our makers, whoever they are. And with that, Tracy Witt said on that similar subject, I've been a home care aide for dementia patients and have sat with countless people as they have passed away, and I know the soul leaves the body because I've actually seen it over and over again. It's breathtaking. It's a breathtaking moment to cherish and behold. I don't know who goes where, but I believe most folks go to heaven. So fascinating. Totally believe it. Totally. I hope someday I have this experience that you have had. And the nurses and the hospice people, you're right in the thick of it. So, and by the way, kudos to you for the great work that you're doing. You're heroes. But very fascinating for so many people to say this. Number 9, Carol Milburn says, I can't say for sure, but when my father passed away, my toddler daughter, who was 15 months old, was inconsolable. She cried and cried. I took her to another room to change her, and as she was laying there, she got completely quiet, and then she started smiling. She was looking up, and her arms were reaching up, and the smiles were amazing, like I'm picturing she's reaching up to somebody. She wasn't in the house, but across the street at a neighbor's house when he had passed. I think this was his goodbye to her as she had that special bond with him. I hope there is a heaven and we will all meet again. Man, energies overlap. It gets back to the auras again. I'm telling you, your father's aura was crossing over. He left and his energy was right there. And maybe it wasn't all that. It was maybe she saw him. Maybe she reached up and there he was, waving goodbye or giving her a kiss. Just amazing to think about. These are like miracles. Number 10, Tammy Now, N-A-U, Tammy Now, I think it's pronounced. I personally believe our energies go back into the universe. Sometimes we reemerge as a person, sometimes as a spirit, and other times an essence that re-energizes the world around us. I can say I fully believe in an afterlife, but I do believe our mind spirits reunites with the things, people, pets that brought us joy to our lives. But the life's energy is reinvested in our world. And I go back to the physics of it, of that, yes, this energy cannot be destroyed. Like you said at the very beginning, it has to go back to the universe. There was a guy, Duncan, his name was Duncan, I'll think of it, but it was a guy, do you guys remember the story in the early 1900s, a century plus ago, where he was with patients, cancer patients, I think it was typhoid, people that were about to die, and he had them on a very accurate scale. It was a bed. It was like a whole contraption that was very accurate, and his idea was to weigh somebody before death and see if they lost weight. And I think it was McDuncan or Duncan, and they lost like 2/3, so many grams. And of course, it was poo-pooed by scientists later, and scientists said, well, when you're about to die, certain moistures accumulate and you're breathing. But anyway, it'd be really interesting to find out if the soul or our energy field has weight. I personally don't believe it, because electromagnetic energy, which would all be, and if it were even smoke, I guess it would have weight, or mist if it's mist. Now, here's the question. I'd never thought of this, but as somebody, and I don't know if I've said it yet, but I remember reading, we'll come to it, they saw it come out of the mouth of their mother or something as mist, which would be moisture. So again, something's really happening here with the soul, the energy leaving the body. Always, every single time, it's something like that. Very interesting. So that experiment, that McDougall guy. All right, HH number 11 says, based on my experiences, spirits leave the body when the body dies, and they can remain earthbound as long as they want to, or as long as we want them to. They can influence things and help push us in the right direction and advise us when we need a gentle nudge if we get off course. Some people have the sixth sense that they can use as much as they use as the other five senses. Boy, I wish I had that. Some call empath, some call it intuition, some call it spiritual connection. They are all accurate descriptions. And yes, some have the gift. And sadly to say, a lot of people don't have the gift and fake the gift. And I still see that today. So I think more people than not don't have the gift and try to make money off it. So watch your backside. But Houdini is one of those, right? If you know the history of Houdini, he would, and again, it was in the age of spiritualism. There were a lot of charlatans. It was a big, I don't know that it's as big now, but I have run into some over my lifetime. So always beware. But there are gifted people that are for real, and I've met them too. So really, really neat. Tommy the Cat, number 12. Tommy the Cat is one of our faithful friends. Tommy says, that's a tough one, but when my heart stopped and all I remember was the most overwhelming feeling of peace and serenity, I think it's either like a light switch going off and that it's more of a deep sleep you never wake up from, a dream for eternity. Yeah, that was like Irish Eyes was saying, you're in a dream state and you just stay in the dream, and it's a dream world. I wonder, it's something to wonder about. Definitely seems possible. 13, Trish Fisher. Hey, Trish. Trish is one of our faithful friends. I just had to throw my 2 cents in, she says. I was raised Catholic, went to Catholic school, got married in a Catholic church, had my daughter baptized in a Catholic church. So being a Catholic, I'm supposed to believe that when you die, you go to purgatory, where if you have committed a mortal sin, it's a place of purification or temporary punishment. And if you have never sinned, then you go straight to heaven. I would like to believe, since I've not committed a mortal sin, now that I will go straight to heaven. And if not, I will have to live eternity in purgatory until the day of judgment. Now, for that being said, honestly, I really don't know where we go when we die. I am just living each day now on earth until that day comes. And you know what? I am so with you on that. And there's nothing wrong with wonder. And I was raised Catholic, by the way. All the same things, all the exact same things to you. And where I'm at now in my life is I'm just open to everything. And I'm wondering and I'm in search of. And there's nothing negative to be said, but it's the search, I think, that really is interesting. But I guess the only other thing I'll say on it is I just don't like to think about death. I'm good at compartmentalizing, so I just try not to think about it, because you know what? There's nothing we can do. We're all going to die. It's going to happen, so don't dwell on it. Try to live a good life and get the most out of each day. Share the love and all that stuff. Try to do good things, which is good to do but it also is fulfilling to yourself inside. I think that's really it's a double-edged good sword, that you're doing good things, but that gives you happiness and fulfillment. And that's what life is all about. So really good. I'm with you on that. Number 14, Gypsy Major. My belief is that the soul, or whatever you choose to call it, when the body has ceased to be home, has a chance to bid farewell to loved ones before moving on to what I would call a departure lounge, where it waits and learns from its previous experience before moving along to its next home or body. And again, Gypsy Major continues on, but I'm very fascinated with that, the departure lounge. I guess that's that purgatory place, or the place where the wise people are, where you decide where you're going to go. A lot of people, it's just a different term of a very similar thing maybe. And is that a place where you, when you say move on, are you leading to reincarnation again? Is it so either it's that lounge where the wise people are, or is it that lounge you mean where it's your energy is just traveling to that next incarnation? So very interesting. Bonita, number 15. I'm agnostic atheist. There's no hell, there's no heaven, nor afterlife. When you die, you die. Your body stops working, including your brain, and that's it. But I love how people pour a tremendous amount of love into their loved one's death. That's why I love your channel. Thank you. I'm not sure on this one, there's a part of me that's totally with you. Again, I'm multifaceted, but I would say that is the part of me that creates fear. And it is in me that what if when we die, the light switch just goes off? And I know many of you are going to go, whoa, blasphemous God. And please, let's allow for this thought. And there are people you have to respect that believe this. And part of me, it's a little corner of me believes that, yes, that's the fear, that all these things you do, you want to see your family. Gosh, all I think about is my kids and all the other stuff you want to reunite, that if the light switch goes off, that is really depressing. It really makes me sad, and it makes me fearful of death. So I just try to not think about it, but that is definitely a possibility that you have to allow for. So number 15, Elderly Poodle. Elderly Poodle says, I took care of my mother for 6 years, not living with her, but making sure she went to doctors, errands, doing her errands. She had a home and hospice at the end. I slept in her living room. Near the end, she would look up and talk to long-lost relatives. I asked her if they were kind. She said they just faded away. I prayed with her. When her 3 friends came from her church to see her, she was asleep. The room was filled with a gold light. The energy was so uplifting. The next morning, I didn't hear her labored breathing anymore. I came to her room and she had passed. Looking up to something, this was an intense spiritual feeling, and I knew there was more to life. I believe she got to see heaven. I'm not scared to pass away. And all I can say to that is simply, wow, it's really cool. And I believe that can be. Nicole Smith, number 16. Great discussion topic. We're 100% Bible believers. Judgment is real, as are heaven and hell. That being said, we've often discussed heaven and our role there. Life may be basic training for whatever lies ahead. Now, isn't that an interesting thought? That our life here is just basic training, like you would be in boot camp for heaven. And I think that's a valid thought, that all the things we're contributing, we're doing, we're learning, that we're going. And again, you can deviate off to the Y in the road to reincarnation, that next life you're a wiser person. But going to heaven, so heaven, you're getting training for heaven. So heaven, if that is the case, heaven must be pretty advanced system going on that you got to jump right into and have all this experience. That leads me to ask you, or not, this isn't about ask you, this is more just to ponder. It makes me ponder, then is heaven just this idyllic place of, the fields and dreams and the people? There's a system there's something going on that we've got to be ready for, and it's that big next step. Very interesting. Never thought about that. Great discussion topic. Number 17, Rose Huber. I'm going to put another log on hey, how are you? Oh, the pup's totally asleep. We're going to let her sleep. I'm going to put another log or two on the fire, if you will allow me, so the fire doesn't go out. Because once the fire goes out, it's a pain to restart it. All right. That'll keep us warm. It's snowing out there here in Chicago. All right, we've got Rose Huber says, I believe we go to a place where we visit our life and see the lessons we've learned, joined by others who will go forward into our next life and teach us new lessons or taught the lessons we need to learn. And again, this is very similar. Or maybe we do a little teaching and a little learning so as we can reach out and reach our full potential as celestial beings. Once we reach our full potential, then we reach a plateau where we rest and we supervise others coming and going. So again, very similar to the helpers. And what's interesting is these are two different people making comments. I'm sure they didn't see each other's comments, but it's this interstitial world where there are the guides or the helpers. So got to be something to that. And I haven't heard that a lot. 18, Jeff Hensley says, at the moment of death and depending on our acceptance of our Savior Jesus Christ, we go to heaven. But those who don't believe and accept Jesus as the Savior go to hell. Jesus is the only way to salvation. And I will just say that many are solidly behind this belief that the only way to get to heaven is through Jesus. And if not, you're cast to hell. I just want to make sure everybody respects these are different beliefs, and it could be. And people believe this just like I believe things and you believe things. We all have to respect each other's belief. A very, very definitive path there. You're going to go to heaven through Jesus. Very interesting. I think that the most interesting thing for me is trying to envision Jesus as a man. And boy, I wish, people say, if you could go back in time, who would you want to meet? That would be who, I thought, Wyatt Earp or JFK. I mean, there's some people I want to meet, but it always goes back to Jesus. And I think for me, it's like, I don't even know if you could behold the sight of the man. And it's just mind-blowing to think about that, he actually lived. And what would that be like? Can you imagine? Anyway, thank you for that, Jeff. Fran Destable? I know, Fran, you've been around, but I cannot pronounce your name. Distabile. Butchered it pretty good there. Fran says, I believe in God, I believe in Jesus, and I believe in heaven. I'm believing that we will be reunited with all our loved ones, and that my son, husband, and parents will be waiting for me at the gate. If I didn't believe this, I don't know what I would have done, because though I need badly to see everyone, I desperately need to see my beautiful son again. Boy, oh boy, that's Fran. I feel the same way. We know my story, and gosh, I know exactly what you're talking about, and I pray and I hope, and I just wonder, does it come down to wanting it bad enough and praying for it, and does it increase the chances that it will happen, or is it just going to happen or not? But yeah, I'm with you there. Number 20, T. Snowman writes, we're made of water and energy and matter. The physical goes back to the earth, and the energy, our soul, passes on to the next adventure in our journey, to boldly go where no man or woman has gone before. Live long and prosper, friend, right? Is that how you do, Spock? I love that, T. Snowman. He says, Spock speaks. Very good. Yeah, do we go to space? I think Gene Roddenberry, they sent his ashes up in orbit. I don't know if they ever came down. But, this makes me think about time travel, time dilation. You guys have heard me talk about it before. Our energy. And, one thing, and just kind of set the table, time travel is possible, and it does come into play with a lot of this. And I've always been fascinated with time dilation. Now, just to give you a basis, again, as I mentioned, or let me start with this. The faster you move through space from here to here, and let's say this is the Earth, and let's say your friend is standing here, and you're standing with your friend, and you go by him from this point to this. The faster you go, the slower your clock is. In other words, compared to their clock. And when you start approaching the speed of light, those are big changes in the clock. Now, if you go, again, the speed of light, 186,000 miles per second, I think it's 7 times around the Earth per second. I did a little animation of it, and it goes about like this. That's about how fast it's going around the Earth. So you're going at the speed of light. No one can go the speed of light, basically, Einstein and all. You can go 0.9999 the speed of light. But what's amazing is the time dilation. If you go half the speed of light, the time dilation is piddle. If you go 0.8 the speed of light, it's still kind of piddle. It's just, even if you go 0.99 the speed of light, let's say you go 185,000 miles per second, there's some time dilation, but it is when you reach 99.99, there's major time difference. If we were to go to, and I don't know, your body could survive the acceleration in a spaceship, right? I mean, to go that fast. But if you could go to Alpha Centauri, which is a light system, I think it's about 4.5 light years away, and they say there's a planet there that's like Earth, and they could tell that from the gravitational pull on the stars. You can't see them, but the Doppler effect. But if you could go there in a spaceship, you would age 4.5 years going there at the speed of light. You turn around, come back at 99.99 the speed of light. You would age 9 years, 4.5 years there, 4.5 years back. You're 9 years older, big deal, right? Well, guess how old it is on the Earth? It's like 800 years later. That's the time dilation difference. This was proven by 2 scientists in the 70s, Haefel and Keating. They had 2 cesium clocks, one here, one on the jet. They went up, and they microsecond, but they proved it. And by the way, if you want proof, right now, we're doing it with our GPS satellites. They can't have fixed clocks. Their computer clocks have to be changing for time dilation because they're moving at thousands of miles per hour compared to us on Earth getting those signals. Their clocks are changing. So anyway, my point on time dilation is as you go through time dilation, when it becomes possible, you start to wonder, are there souls going through time dilation, like when you die? Because remember I said the aura, the electrothermal, not thermal, the electromagnetic energy, the electric energy that you have as it leaves your body, it just like radio signals, it can move at the speed of light. So what does that all mean then? Like you're going through time dilation at the speed of light. So now I've just thrown a whole boomerang into this whole thing to get you guys thinking. But this is where, when you start talking about Star Trek and our soul going to outer space, if it's going at that speed, it is also going through time dilation. And the final thing I will say about that, and I'm not going to get any further deep into it because it's pretty mind-blowing. You have to really, there's a lot to it obviously, but to keep it in layman's term, when you're going through, the only way to explain it is if you go, that going into the future then is very easy. It's pretty, we're kind of doing it right now in small ways with the GPS satellites. So in 200 or 500 years, we're going to be doing it. But going into the past is infinitely harder. Like going the future that way, slowing your clock down is the way to go to the future. Going the past, you have to go through wormholes. And I'm not going to get into it. Maybe we'll do a session on that sometime. This is infinitely harder, and they say it's possible, but no one, it's all theory right now. But if time dilation's possible, then you're going back in time. You have to allow for that. The point of this whole thing is that you are changing history and you are changing the future. It's kind of like if you were to kill Hitler when he was 22 years old or whatever, then everything changes. Well, the truth of the matter is, if you change one person's life over the period of several generations, it's like a ripple in a pond. It keeps going, and it's just going to change history. So you have to, and my point of all this is, you have to allow for something that's called different time dimensions. That means different histories being written, different futures being written at the same place, in the same place. Hard to fathom, but enough on that for now. Maybe if you guys want, we'll explore that a little deeper. 21, Mort Main says, I'm a paranormal researcher, and based on evidence, I have personally experienced the soul or energy leaves the body at the moment of death. The spirit remains the memories, the beliefs, the emotions of the deceased. Many of the spirits are trapped due to unfinished business or emotional baggage. Others, many of them Christian teachings, are waiting for Jesus to call them from heaven. And then Marilyn Monroe Jr. kind of replying, or not replying, but coming off that, also believes in that the soul does get trapped between two planes and they cannot escape. And what I say is, you get back to this time dilation, and this maybe that's why it gets trapped. And I guess if my question to you would be, the thing I think about it is, when it gets trapped, if it does get trapped for whatever reason or another, how long, and what determines how long it gets trapped? Or is it infinite? Is it just, the worst things you did? I don't know. So it's just a facet of our discussion here that was brought up. 23, 10 soldiers. The law of conservation of energy states that energy can either be created or destroyed, only converted from one form of energy to another. So I really agree with that. I said that you cannot destroy energy. So it just, again, reaffirms the physics drives the spiritual. I've always said that. Cannot destroy energy. Number 26, the Colonel is in the house. Colonel Bo. Hey, Ron and gang, here's my answer to your question. Since you can't destroy energy, you can only change form. I believe that our essence returns to the fabric of space, and we will dwell with the vibrations of the cosmos. If I'm not mistaken, Steve Jobs' last words were, wow, wow, wow. So death is not the end, it is only the beginning. And to that I say, I agree. Very fascinating. Connie Black, 27. I never believed in ghosts or anything like that, but truly had an experience that changed that. I know there's something, be it good or bad, that I connected with at my grandmother's grave. I asked her for a sign that my recently passed brother was with her and safe. I don't know what I brought home that day, but I will never do that again. So I know in my heart our energy is still there. How long, I don't know. I don't want to know. That was too scary. So I guess my question is, wow, what happened there? What was, you didn't say, you said, I know what I brought home that day. I will never do that again. I would love to know, if it's not too personal, what horrible sign that you got. I mean, you got a sign that your, from your grandmother's, your past brother was safe or not safe. So anyway, very interesting comment at the grave. I've never had anything happen to me at a grave other than at the Richard Warren Sears crypt I talked about, that one episode. The bald guy with his mouth open. It's at the end of that episode where the temperature just went like out of control in that crypt. Unexplained, crazy thing. Kimberly Davis, number 28. I believe that we rest in our graves and wait until the Lord comes back and calls us home. Now, when I read that scares the crap out of me, because if that's true, that you're saying it's kind of like being buried alive, laying in the coffin until the Lord comes. Boy, I hope that's not the case. It could be true. We're all where we die and we've got to wait for the Lord to come back and call us home. I hope that's not the case. Linda Ball, one of our friends, Linda Ball says, I believe our souls go to heaven. However, I do believe we can come here as well and see our loved ones in the spirit form. And again, there's a lot to that. I believe that if you've been an evil person, you go nowhere and you're just deceased. I don't know there's a hell. I think you've got life, spirit, soul is all you've got left in the ground, or whatever you choose, and it's blackness for you. And she's saying, if you're an evil person. Very interesting. Again, we get back to spirits. Gosh, don't you think we would see it more though? Because every family, loved ones, I mean, that's the number one thing. You want to come back and see them. And we'll talk about this too, of leaving signs. You have a little agreement. We go back to Wyatt Earp and Morgan Earp as Morg was dying, or they always had that discussion as they were boys and growing up that, if you die first, or, I want to know what you see. And it's an intrigue for everybody. And I've always said, and I'm thinking right now, before I die, I'm going to talk to my sons. I'm going to say, I'm going to try and come back. I don't want to scare you guys, but I want to give you a sign. So I don't know, maybe we'll take a golf tee and put it on your dresser. And if that falls over, but the wind could blow it over. You're going to come up with some sign that's like foolproof to say, I'm here. Boy, wouldn't that be cool? Betty Feliciano says, I believe at the moment of death, our souls leave the body and either go to heaven if you've had a personal relationship with God while on earth, or it goes to hell because you didn't have a personal relationship with God. So yeah, I'm with you there. Geraldine Burns, 31. My only brother passed away 2 years ago. At the end, he couldn't speak. The night before he died, I held his hand and asked him when he got to heaven to send me a sign that he was okay, a white feather or some pennies. Now, this is just what I was talking about. Exactly. And listen to this. I brought a neighbor to the hospital a few weeks later. When I opened the door, 5 pennies laying on the ground. Not just 1 penny, 5 pennies. Only for my neighbor been with me, no one would believe me. I smiled and said, thanks for letting me know. Wherever he is, he's okay. Really cool stuff there. How about that? So there's a case. Now, you can always argue and say, somebody emptied their pockets. But, I don't know. That's pretty cool. But I still think that, I'm going to think and think and think before I die with my sons. I'm going to have some kind of sign like, all right, I'm going to leave you this sign. It's got to be foolproof. Like there's always, and there's, again, with all of this, there's going to always be room for doubt, right? Is it coincidence or not? Angela says, I honestly think after we die, our soul leaves our body. At this point, I think we're basically stuck in a void with people we know until Judgment Day. In the Bible, now listen to this is really interesting. I've never heard this before. In the Bible, sorry I can't remember which scripture, It says there is only room in heaven for 100,000 people until heaven is brought down on earth after the final war between Jesus and the devil. So I think our souls can go anywhere we choose, even other dimensions. So there's only 100,000 people or souls that can go to heaven. And then, I mean, that would have had to been shut off then in the Egyptian times, or after Jesus. I don't know. It seemed to me, hearing that, it would be like, wow, we're like out of luck. Or did they just kind of prorate that and always leave a few spots open? Really interesting. I never heard that before. It's intriguing, and it could be. And really, the bottom line of it means that in the interstitial world, as we're floating around, if we're going that direction to heaven or hell, that it's not until Judgment Day when the final battle happens. So really, really interesting there. Dina Howard, number 33, says, I can tell for a fact my grandmother died at her home. Me and my husband was sitting next to her bed, and we seen like a mist. Oh, here it is. A mist coming from her mouth. Our souls leave our body, and until Judgment Day, I think they're in a dimension in and around people that loved us. So here we go. Now it's a mist coming out of the mouth. I believe that could be part of our energy, right? Is pulling the moisture out of our body, the electromagnetic, whatever the soul is. Absolutely, I'm with you there. And again, I'm going to say that a lot of people might not agree with me, and that's okay. But my personal belief is our soul is here. This is where everything comes from, and not here. I think here is the heart is a muscle. It has some electromagnetic energy. And I know you can talk about the chakras, and I know all of that stuff, but I believe it's our brain. And by the way, not to get gruesome or morbid, but a lot of us are morbid, like me. The guillotine, didn't they say if you look at a lot of those and they chop their heads off, they're blinking, they're looking. As long as the brain has oxygen, whether it be for 2 or 5 seconds, or I truly believe down the road, you cut somebody's head off, if it's fed oxygen and blood supply, you are going to remain conscious. You don't need your lower extremities. Where am I going with this? Anywhere I'm going with this is the energy is in your mind, and so coming out your mouth, I really believe that more than anything else, and emanating from parts of your head. That's my personal belief. I mean, again, a lot of our soul is, I'm saying it's mostly here. I mean, our whole body is electromagnetic energy, so it is coming from all over, but I think mostly here. Shannon Geddes, number 34. I've only shared my thoughts with 2 other people. I think this is hell, what we are living. Listen to this. This is really interesting. I think this is hell, what we are living every day. Hell on earth, everyone. Then we will die. When we die, we all go to heaven. This is why really nasty, evil people live a really long time. They are doing their time in hell right here on earth right now. And also why life is hard and difficult to trudge through at times. I think you mean drudge through or trudge through. We all have to do our time in hell before we get to heaven. So my answer to you was, I really question that, because I have a lot of history and knowledge of murder cases through, especially since I started the channel and the research I've done, and a lot of murderers, and I think, the familial DNA matching, look at Anthony Muncie, that guy died, he never got justice. He died young. A lot of these evil people die young. We hear it all the time. So I'm not sure I agree with you on that one, but don't know. It's a very interesting concept. We are almost finished here, guys. What are we running? Oh, I don't have a timer, so we're on 35. We're going to go to 40. So we have M. Valise, and hold on, my iPad's malfunctioning. Here we go. M.S. Valise 01 says, I believe our souls leave our bodies immediately after we die. Now, where does the soul go? It depends. If death is sudden, unexpected, then the soul tries to find a body for reincarnation. Interesting. If the death is expected and the person is ready to die, then the soul goes to I thought you were going to say heaven, goes to a parallel universe. Very interesting. I'm with you on a lot of that. We've talked about a lot of that stuff, but what's interesting is you say when the soul, if you go suddenly, it goes to reincarnation. I would think it would be the other way around, that if the soul, and you have preparation and you go easy, you just kind of float. Well, I don't know, maybe you're right. You go suddenly, it's panicking and it has to find something. What's closest? Go to the, if you're in the hospital most of the time, you're going to go to the baby room. I don't know. Interesting. Clark Brogue, Broege, talks about his stepmom had a fatal heart attack, 58 years old, never pronounced her dead because they never gave up on her. Her heart did stop beating, 4 minutes, stopped breathing. They were able to revive her, stabilize her, and when she was able to speak, she said, she stated that she was automatically surrounded by peacefulness. There was a light around her. The light wasn't bright, but even though she could see the light, she couldn't look directly at it at any given time. So is that the tunnel of light, right, we hear about? Maybe the path to heaven, or the light that you can turn around and say, I don't want to go there. She said it was like floaters in the eyes. You saw it when you weren't looking, but couldn't see it directly. And then she said she was greeted by her mother, but her mother was in her 30s and not in her 70s when she passed. I love this, by the way. My mom said she couldn't see herself, but that she felt as if she was happy without a care in the world. Then she said her mother told her she couldn't stay. It wasn't her time. And that's when something, I can't read the spelling, the doctors were able to revive her. Very, very interesting. And then Peg S replied, number 37, I put it right with, in the same note, Peg was replying, souls end up looking like us at our best age, at 30 years old, when they manifest into looking like their human self. I've read this, but I certainly have no personal experience. Now, I have heard this before also, and it came up when we were at the grave of little Ryan Jolly a couple of weeks ago down in Florida. Is he in heaven, or in his afterlife, is he 5 days old? Does he keep aging? And and the thing I want to believe is that I love this. Everybody goes to 30. You may not be in the mental prime of your life, but we're talking about how you look. That would be pretty close to what I would believe is your physical prime of life. Now, you can argue that, but I wonder if that's true. Very, very intriguing. There must be something to this. 38, 3 more to go. 3 more to go. Aaron Jatzlau, Jatzlau, says, I'm going to be the downer here. When we die, we're just gone. No offense to anyone's belief, but I don't believe there is a heaven or a hell. I don't believe we get reincarnated. I feel like different religions believe their different beliefs, so they're not scared of dying. Think about it. If you live a good life and you feel when you're gone and you go to heaven, that's less scary than thinking when you die, you no longer exist. And Ashley Wilcox, who was our Facebook creator and moderator, came out of the woodwork. Ashley, love it. And I'm not doing this because bad, I'm saying, and I'm just excited. She said, I'm with you on that, with the smiley face. And you know what? I got to tell you guys, I've wondered that myself. And I know a lot of you people that believe in God and Jesus or other religions are really going to get mad, but you just wonder that our religions created so that you're not scared to die and you do good things in life. I don't think I believe that, but there are people that believe that religions are made up. So wow, you're hearing from all ends of the spectrum here. I hope that's not true. For me, this is what creates, if heaven doesn't exist, if God doesn't exist, and again, I feel it in my heart that there is a God, because, well, what's our purpose? Then what are we doing here? What's the purpose to all this? We're like bugs. I guess that's another subject. Do bugs have souls? But it's like, what are we doing here? And I will tell you this, and this is kind of a tangent off this, but believing that there's something more to this life. Ever since that I was a kid, I don't know if I've mentioned this before, but this is a deep-seated feeling I've had since I was literally 6 or 7 years old, is that I couldn't not exist. And this gets back to the reincarnative stuff, but I wonder, and I always had put it, why Abraham Lincoln? But I would say, when Abraham Lincoln was president, where was I? And then I would say to myself, I had to be somewhere. I couldn't not exist. And it's, now think about it, or think about it from another past time yourself, and put yourself in that time and say, where was I? And then you say, well, you weren't yet. That's really hard to, then your gut fights that and says, I had to be somewhere. So were you a soul that wasn't born yet in heaven and God, or were you in a prior life reincarnated? This is where my inner feeling really, but when I think about that chance that there's none of this, and you go back to there's no God, there's nothing, we're just here, and it's all made up. So that puts fear in my heart. It makes me scared to die. That, again, it gets back to that light switch going off. I think that would be the darkest and worst. I hope and pray that is not the case. So we're going to end it here with John 8:08. John has the Jack Nicholson face. I think it had a cigarette. It was a funny Jack Nicholson. And John says, blasphemy, a strong word in some parts of the world. You are threatening the uniqueness of God's presence by us saying, does the afterlife, that comforting feeling that gives us more to life, that we leave the body, we all have opinions. That's why there's different religions to how all things work, is what we choose to believe. It's comforting to think our loved ones that have passed are now resting in peace. But beyond that, who knows? And I'll end it with that, as I agree with you. We want to believe, we believe that there is, all of this is going on, that we're not just here for no purpose, that our loved ones that have passed before us are there waiting for us, and that we'll be there with them waiting for those that came after us that we love, our children. And gosh, I hope that is it. And I think that's what I'm going to end it on, everybody. So thanks for hanging out. This was fun, and this is a big experiment. I hope this went over okay, and I hope you guys liked it. And if it didn't, then we won't do it anymore. And if we did, let me know, and we can do more of this on similar or other subjects. All right, so see you later.